Imagine a weekly seller report like this going out to your clients every single week. Gorgeous branding that's on point with your brand and your logo. Incredible detailed information about how many views and likes and favorites the home is getting across all of the major showing platforms, summarizing all of the in-person showings and showing feedback that has come in through the property, a list of the other properties that they're currently competing with and other recent comparable sales, and even an optional section to add links of posts you've done about their home on social media. One of the best parts is that this entire report is almost entirely automated with Claude. And I'm going to walk you through step by step and show you exactly how to get this so that you can be sending this report to your clients every single week. And it's not even costing you some extra subscription that you need to pay for. Transparently, you do need to have Claude Pro, which is at least $20 a month to make this happen. But I promise once you see everything it can do for you, you will want to implement that because you're going to save a lot of money doing it. Now, we have built a really helpful install guide that will walk you through step by step of the process, everything that you need to do in the appropriate order to get this branded weekly seller report created and sent off to your clients. If you're already somewhat of an experienced Claude user, you already understand the difference between skills and projects and connectors, and maybe you've even set up a design system in Claude Design. My guess is that you don't need this video. Just go get our install guide that is included in the video description, install that, download it, and go through step by step of the install, and you will be set. But if you're not as experienced with Claude, perhaps you've tried it a couple of times, but you don't get what all the rage is about. Maybe you are just a lot more comfortable with ChatGPT. You like how it talks to you. You like how it remembers you. You've dabbed your toe into Claude a couple of times because you keep hearing people talk about it, but you don't get what all the rage is about. Then this video is going to take you through slowly, one step at a time, how to set up this weekly seller report. But we're also going to spend some time talking about each of the different layers of Claude because we're going to be touching a lot of the different layers of Claude in this video. We're going to be using skills. We're going to be using connectors. We're going to be using projects. We're going to be using Claude Cowork. We're not going to be doing any code. So don't worry. This is all very doable as long as you know how to attach things to an email. I promise you know how to do everything that you need to do in this email. But there's a couple of layers of different tools that are all going to work together to make this happen. I would also like to acknowledge that there are other really fantastic tools out there that can kind of automate this weekly seller report for you, but with less customization. One of our favorites is made by a good friend, North Reports. So if you just want more of a, hey, let me just turn on this subscription and send out an easy, already made for you weekly seller report that doesn't require me to build out a custom thing in Claude, then I absolutely highly recommend a product like that. If, however, you would prefer to send something that you can put your fingers on a little bit more, curate it a little bit more, make sure that it includes the elements that you want to have included, and then make sure that it's completely branded with your things on it, then I really think you're going to love this workflow. And the best part is that I think it's going to cost you a lot less money in the long run. And you're going to learn through this workflow how to automate all kinds of other things in your business because of what it's going to teach you about how to use Claude. So with all that said, let's jump in and start with getting this weekly seller report built. I can't wait to take you on this journey with me. So let's start by talking about what is Claude and what's the big deal about what Claude can do versus some of the other AIs that you may be most familiar with, such as some of the other big large language models like ChatGPT. The reality is that each of these AI assistants all have their own lane. They all have a thing that they're the best in the world at, right? And ChatGPT, I think, is the land where many of us got started, and it was exciting, and it started to get to know us and had the incredible memory. ChatGPT is really incredible at a lot of things. Language is one of those things that is very, very good at words and talking things out and advising and helping you feel good about yourself. Although I will say that some of the other large language models have really been catching up in that category as well. But the biggest difference with Claude is that it has the ability to connect to your other tools and perform multi-step workflows. So basically, Claude has the ability to connect to your email, connect to your browser, connect to the files on your computer, and connect to hundreds of other things and perform multi-step workflows, such as analyzing the information in your email and then combining that with the information that's on your calendar to send you a daily report about what's in your inbox and what is on your calendar for the day. If you'd like to see more on that workflow, we've even made a video about how to give yourself a morning briefing every day so that you see an idea of what you have going on. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with Claude. If it lives in Google Drive or in your email or in your calendar or in any of the many other tools that Claude has the ability to connect with, there's probably a way to improve it, automate it, or have it happen on a trigger without very much of your involvement by using Claude and connecting it to all of these different tools, which up to this point is just a feature that ChatGPT and most of the other large language models have not been able to execute on at a high level like Claude has. Now, if you are familiar with ChatGPT, you may know that ChatGPT has things like custom GPTs, and it also has this really great memory. Well, in Claude, you're often going to want to work in a space called a project. A project is probably the closest cousin to a custom GPT like ChatGPT has. You can start a project, and inside of that project, you can have multiple conversations and the memory of Claude inside that project to remember the other chats and the other key details of what has happened inside of that project is able to be better than the memory if you're just in a different random chat. When you are in Claude, you'll see over here on the left-hand side that you have a section called projects. And you can go to this projects, and inside of this projects, you can create certain categories of topics that you want to come back to. Basically, big things that you're going to continue to work on multiple times over the course of multiple days and have multiple conversations about that project. Also, most of the time, if you're looking to create an automation, something that you want to have happen on a schedule or on a regular basis or on some other form of a trigger, you almost always want it to happen inside of a project. Within a project, you can give custom instructions that you want Claude to follow every single time. And you can also give it access to certain files that you want it to be able to have access to every single time. So if every single time you want it to go back and access this specific spreadsheet in order to do what it needs to do, you can just give it access to that file, and it is able to pull up that spreadsheet and use the information in that spreadsheet to do whatever the task is. As with most of the AI platforms, there is a free version for Claude where you can go on and chat and do a couple of things. But in order to build what we're looking to do, and frankly, in order to do a lot of the coolest things in Claude, you are going to need the Pro membership, which is about $20 a month. Now, I know you might be feeling, oh my gosh, I'm getting $20 a month to death in this business. Everything is $20 a month, but there's 10,000 of those things that you need, and it all adds up. And we're all getting a little sensitive to how many subscriptions that we're going to need. I can tell you that once I started really using Claude and getting comfortable with it, I actually canceled my ChatGPT Pro membership, and I really haven't looked back much. Furthermore, it's allowed me to automate certain things, saving me multiple hours a day and saving me in costs for products that I used to spend hundreds of dollars a month for. So the $20 a month, frankly, even the step above that, the max plan, which is $100 a month, if you really use this and you really put it to work for you, it's going to save you tons of money, not cost you a ton of money, I promise. Now, on to the next section, we are going to talk about Claude's desktop application. Now, this gets a little bit confusing because when you use Claude, you can use your web browser and just go to Claude.ai. Claude.ai looks like this. I'm inside of my web browser and I'm able to pull it up, and I'm just like ChatGPT, I'm able to start a new conversation, get into a project, and begin doing what we do with our AI assistants in terms of talking or asking for advice or asking it to help me respond to an email or whatever it is. Many of the things that I want to do with Claude can be done on Claude.ai. Certain tasks that you want to set up on automations. Let's say you want it to run every day at 7 a.m. or other tasks that you want it to be able to take control of your browser. We're going to get to that in a minute, but you want it to be able to go into your web browser and find a piece of information for you automatically. And when you're wanting to schedule it on a task, we have to use Claude's desktop application because it allows Claude to actually access things and do things on your computer, not just in your web browser. In order to download the Claude desktop application, you're going to go to claude.ai/downloads, and you're going to scroll down to right here where it says desktop. I'm on a Mac, so it says download for Mac OS. If you're on Windows, it should say download for Windows. Claude's desktop application works on both desktop and Windows computers. When I am in Claude's desktop application, it looks an awful lot like Claude.ai, and it can be kind of confusing to know, am I in the right spot? Once you have downloaded the Claude desktop application and you have it open, when you move up to the top, if you're on a Mac, you'll see what program you're actually running right there. And you'll see it says Claude. It allows you to even quit Claude as the application that you're using. If we go back into Chrome and we're inside of our web browser, right? If you go to the very top, it says Chrome, and Chrome is the program that I'm actually running. So the Claude desktop application, this is what it looks like. It looks a lot like Claude, but again, it gives you some additional abilities. And the way you're really going to know the fastest if you're in the right place is you should see 3 tabs up here on the left-hand side that say Chat, Cowork, and Code. Now, frankly, the chat section, you can use Claude's desktop application for chat, but you can also use Claude's web browser for chat. So if you're just looking for chat, I don't see a ton of value of adding Claude's desktop application. But when you're looking to build certain automations, you want to create tasks that run on a trigger, something that runs every day at 7 a.m., or you want Claude to have the ability to take control of your computer, grab certain files, go online and do things on your web browser on your behalf, you need to be in this Claude Cowork tab. For the project of the weekly seller report that we're getting ready to build, we're definitely going to need this Cowork tab because later we're going to actually ask Claude to go into your email, grab certain things that it needs from your email about showing activity and listing reports. And it's even going to go to a couple of websites like Zillow and Redfin to grab some of the viewing activity for our weekly seller report as well. Okay, now let's talk about one of my next favorite tools with Claude, and it is definitely one that we are going to need for our workflow with getting some of the information we need for these weekly seller reports. But first, let me give you a high level overview of what Claude in Chrome is. So there's many tools and services that Claude can connect to natively through what's called an MCP, which is basically computer talk to computer talk. It allows Claude to talk natively with programs that you can connect it to. So like your Gmail and your calendar, for example, they can talk to each other in a bunch of zeros and ones and get things done really fast. But there's lots of tools that don't allow an MCP or there isn't an MCP. So Claude can't connect to it through ones and zeros, but it can take control of your browser and look at what's happening on your browser screen, even click buttons for you or fill out forms for you by using the Claude in Chrome extension. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how it works and what it does. And it's got some things that it's good at and some things that it's not super good at. So again, it is able to look at what is on your screen. It essentially takes a screenshot of what's on your screen and is able to use that still image, that photo, to analyze and make the next decision of where it should click next or to gather the information that you were looking for off of the screenshot. So it's slow and clunky. You would not want to use Claude in Chrome to go and analyze complex multi-page reports by, going into your CRM and looking at 100 different lead profiles and figuring out which one you ought to call today. Probably not the best use for Claude in Chrome because it's slow, it's taking screenshots, and it's going to read that screenshot and decide what it wants to do with it. But if there's some information that you really need that exists online somewhere that you aren't able to grab through your email through that native connection, then you might need to use Claude in Chrome for little things like that now and again. So for example, on this particular weekly seller workflow report that we're building, my MLS sends a weekly email to me with the comps, but the comps themselves are not in the email. There's a link you have to click on. And then when you go to that link, it shows you the actual comps. And that's where we're using Claude in Chrome to get the data that we need. First, let me show you where you're going to go to install Claude in Chrome. Again, you're going to go to this claude.ai/downloads, and you're going to scroll down to where it says Chrome right here, and then just click install to add Claude in Chrome. You do need to be using Chrome as your web browser. So if you're using Safari or some other web browser, it's not going to work. Make sure that you're using Google Chrome or a Chromium based browser in order to add Chrome. If you click on this install and it doesn't give you an option, it should be taking you to the Chrome web store where you can add Chrome to your browser. So this is the page it should take you to. If it's not, it could be because you're not in Chrome as your web browser. And if you already have it, then you should see a button there that says remove from Chrome. If you don't already have it, you should see a button right there that allows you to add it to Chrome. Now, once you've added it to Chrome, you will see it in this sidebar up here with your other Chrome extensions. And in order to open it, you just click it and it opens up in a sidebar here, and you can begin asking it to do things for you with regards to what is on your screen. So for example, here's an email that I have with the comps to the property that I'm wanting to get the data for my weekly seller report. So I can come in here and ask it to look at the link and analyze the comps for me. Okay, and then I'm going to hit send, and it's going to take it a minute, but I want to show you so you'll see that it begin thinking and it's going to begin analyzing. And in a minute, we will hopefully be able to see it do some things on my screen. So again, I'm hands-free right now, and all of a sudden you see Claude has taken over control of the browser, and it is beginning to look at the information that was contained in that link. Okay, it took Claude in Chrome a solid 4 or 5 minutes, but it was actually able to click the link, go through my MLS, and read the details about the bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, pricing on all of the other comps for this property. And it even provided me with some commentary. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's too time consuming. I don't have time to get Claude in Chrome every single week to go look at my email, go look at the comps and give me a write up so that I can then put it into a weekly seller report. That's why we added Claude Cowork first. So Claude Cowork in the previous chapter, once we have that set up, we can actually put a scheduled task for it to run at a certain time every week to go into your email, find the comps that came in for the individual properties, and then activate Claude in Chrome on its own to click the links or to go to Redfin or to go wherever we need it to go to gather the information that we need for your weekly seller report. You're not going to have to prompt it manually to do this every week. We're going to entirely automate it using Claude in Chrome combined with Claude Cowork and a weekly task that fires on a schedule every week. But I wanted you to see a high level overview of what Claude in Chrome is and how it works. And I'm pretty sure you're going to find a lot of other cool use cases for it. Just not even necessarily automations. You get a complex email that you need help responding to, or just whatever's on your screen that you need help with, you can ask Claude in Chrome for it. Now, let's talk about Claude connectors, because this is a really vital step if you want to be able to use Claude at a high level. Connectors are basically what allow Claude to communicate natively with many of the other apps that you use on a regular basis. Now, I just finished showing you Claude in Chrome, which is where Claude can use your web browser to take screenshots, and then it reads those screenshots and figures out where the relevant information is and grabs that or clicks on it and goes to the next step. But it's slow and clunky and kind of one picture at a time. But if there is a connector available, it basically means that Claude is able to communicate with that service natively in their native language, computer to computer, and they're much faster and much more efficient and can exchange data really, really quickly. So you can get really complex and really comprehensive analysis of a lot of information in a very, very fast period of time. Now, there are different kinds of connectors, and the ones that I use in all of my videos are always Anthropic approved connectors, which means that they're considered to be secure. There are off-market third-party connectors that you can get and install that are not necessarily bad, but are also not as guaranteed safe as the official Anthropic connectors are. But we're only going to be showing you the official Anthropic connectors in this, or really in all of our other videos. They're quite secure, and it allows Claude to communicate effectively with your other third-party platforms. And furthermore, these connectors can be customized. You get to approve what the connector is and is not allowed to do, so you can make sure that Claude doesn't take any action on your behalf that you don't approve. For example, in the email, the Gmail connector that I'm going to help you turn on here in a moment, it has the ability to read everything in your email. And if you turn it on, it can even write draft replies in your email, but it can't send them, right? So there's certain tasks that it just can't do, no matter how much you try to approve the connectors. It can't do everything because many of these steps you're going to want to have human involvement in to make sure that it's not going all crazy and Skynet on us. So with that said, let me walk you through where to go for finding connectors, adding connectors, editing connectors, so that you can make sure that you understand what they are, how they work, and how to use them. So I'm currently in the Claude desktop application. You see the 3 tabs up here. You can do this from Claude.ai as well, but since we're going to be using the Claude desktop application for most of our workflow today, I thought I would show it to you the way it looks inside of Claude desktop application. I call it Claude Cowork because that's what I use it for the most, is this Cowork tab. But for the connectors, it doesn't matter if you're on Claude.ai or the Claude desktop application. But once you're in here, you're going to click on Customize. And then once in Customize, there's this button here that says Connectors. And once you click on Connectors, if you have any connectors already added, it will show them over here on the left-hand side. And then you can also click on individual connectors and adjust their permissions. But let's not get into the permissions yet. Let's just go for how to add a connector. So if you, let's just assume you get to this page and you don't have anything connected, you click this little plus sign and say Browse Connectors, and it pulls up all of the connectors that Anthropic has available, Anthropic and their partners have available to connect with Claude, that allows this really seamless communication between Claude and this other platform. So the one that you are for sure going to want for this automation is your email. So if you're using Outlook, you can get that by adding the Microsoft 365 connector. And then the other one that you're really going to want is Gmail. But as you can see, there's a lot of other connectors available, lots of different apps. I use the Google Drive connector all the time. I use the Zoom connector all the time. It depends on what you need and what you're going to want, but you also don't want to have a bunch of extra connectors that you're not going to need or use, because it uses your usage that you're allowed on a daily basis with Claude more when you have extra connectors turned on that you're not using. But because I have, my email connector and my calendar connector turned on, Claude, when I ask it to do things, can go look in my email. It can go look at my calendar. It can go look in my Zoom account. It can do a lot of those things. Now, again, if you would like to consider adjusting your permissions, once you have your connectors turned on, you can come to this page and you can pull up one of these connectors, and and you can adjust what it is allowed to do and not allowed to do. So let's specifically for this workflow, we're going to be using the Gmail connector or the Outlook connector. So you're for sure going to want to make sure that those are turned on. And it is absolutely going to need all of the read only tools turned on. Now, for the right tools, it's not necessarily going to need everything in this category. We do want it to be able to draft an email in your account. Again, it doesn't even have the ability to send them. I don't see any reason why it's going to need to create label, delete labels, and things like that. So I don't think you need any of the rest of these for this particular workflow. But once you get used to it, you might feel more comfortable with what it's doing, and you can choose to come in and turn additional of these connectors on if you're feeling comfortable. Now, also, you can, if you're just very nervous about letting Claude do things for you in your email, you can also change it to needs approval. So when you take one of these connectors and put it into needs approval, it still has the ability to go in there and draft an email. For example, if I put draft email and needs approval, it can still go draft an email, but it will ask me before it does it. So it'll pop up with a, hey, I need your permission to draft this email. Is that okay? And you can absolutely set it to that initially until you start to feel like you have faith and confidence that it's doing it the way that you want it to. And then you can change it to always allow. I can tell you I've been using the Gmail and the Google Drive and the Google Calendar connectors now for several weeks, several months really, and have not had any issues with them doing anything that going rogue and emailing people without my permission or really doing anything other than what I explicitly asked it to do. So I have personally felt like it's been very safe and easy to use for me. Now, let's talk about skills. Yes, I know yet another layer to talk about regarding Claude and what it's capable of doing. Skills are really unique. They are a reusable ability that you give Claude that it can call upon from any conversation and from any project. So basically, you design a skill that knows how to do a specific task for you over and over again. A popular example of a skill, for example, is a brand guide that understands your voice and your brand colors and the way that you like to talk. That could be installed as a skill so that in the future, when you ask Claude to give you a script for a video, as an example, it knows how you like to talk. It knows what your brand voice is by studying that skill that you've previously installed in it. And then it gives you the script back in your voice. It doesn't matter if you were in the project where you had previously discussed what your brand voice is. Once you've installed a skill, it can reuse that skill over and over again in any project. So it's sort of like a custom GPT from ChatGPT, except you don't need to be in that thread where that custom GPT lives. You can be anywhere and it knows how to call upon that skill and follow that preset series of instructions. A skill does not live inside of a project. You can have a project where there's memory within that project, but the project can call upon any one of your skills. Plus, you could be in a different project and it could use the same skill that you used in another project. So think of skills as like cross project tools that you were able to use. And the skills essentially allow you to get a more predictable result. Let's say, for example, that you had a skill that knows the way that you like to run comps. If you uploaded the MLS data to it, it would follow the series of instructions that you would use to run comps on a specific property if you had taken the time to create and build that skill. Now, again, skills can be installed from either Claude.ai or from the Claude desktop application. But since we're using Claude desktop's application for this workflow, I'm going to show you how to add a skill from here. But again, you can also do this from Claude.ai, and they're all connected, by the way. So if you add this skill from Claude.ai, it will show up in your Claude desktop application and vice versa. So once you install a skill, it's platform wide across all of your Claude use cases. To get to your skills, you're going to go to customize again, just like when we went to go check for our connectors. And now there's this button up in the upper left-hand corner called skills. And you're going to come to skills and you're going to see if you have any skills previously created, you should see them here in this drop down list of skills. The first thing you're going to want to do is come to this shared Google Drive folder where we have put all of the assets that you're going to need for this install, including the install guide. But you're going to see one file right here called the skill file. You're going to need to download this skill and it'll just go into your downloads folder wherever you have that set to. You don't need to move it. Once we add it to Claude, we're not going to need it anymore. Okay, so once you have downloaded the skill from that Drive document, you're going to come into your skills from the Claude desktop application, and you're just going to click this plus sign to add a skill. And then you're going to say create a skill, just hover over it, don't click on it, and then go to upload a skill. Upload a skill, and then you will select the file that we literally just downloaded. Once you add the skill, you should see it appear over here in your list of skills. Hopefully it went right to the top. It should be called Weekly Seller Report CFA, which we've been putting CFA after all of our skills. It just stands for Claude for Agents, so that you'll be able to identify all of the skills that you've gotten from our videos in the future. If you ever want to remove them or adjust them, they're easy to come in and change. All of your skills can easily be adjusted from inside of a conversation or by coming in here and adding to the skills and editing them. But the one thing you're going to want to make sure after adding the skill is make sure that it is turned on. This little blue toggle bar right here allows you to take a skill and turn it on or off. If you also have any other skills in here, this would be a good time to look at those and make sure that they're all still relevant and skills that you want. If you don't want them anymore, you should probably remove them, or at a minimum, toggle that little blue bar off so that they're not showing up on your skills list anymore. Once a skill has been added, you do not necessarily have to ask Claude to use the skill. Anytime you're in any chat conversation, if you ask it something and it thinks that the skill that you have created is relevant to your query, it will just use that skill automatically. If you want to make extra sure that it's going to use the skill that you want it to use, you can hit the slash bar and it pulls up a list of all of your skills with a brief description of what they are. So you could come to this weekly seller report CFA and then type your query and it would know to use that skill. So let me give you an example. As you can see, I have a brand style guide for the Big Helper group. So for example, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to ask it to write a caption for a social media post for me. And we're going to watch to see if it uses my brand style guide skill without me even asking it to use the brand style guide skill. It was able to use the skill without me asking it to use the skill, and read the information in the skill and then provided its answer based on what the skill told it about how it should write and talk about the Big Helper group. Okay, we are nearly ready to begin building your actual weekly seller report now that you have all the information about skills and connectors and projects and Claude in Chrome and Claude Cowork. We're ready to start actually building this thing. Now, the main way that this weekly seller report works is that it's going to use Claude's connection with your email to go into your email and find all of the relevant information about your listing. If you really think about it, you're probably using something like Showing Time, Aligned Showings, or Broker Bay that sends you an email already whenever there's a showing notification on any of your listings. Plus, many of the portals like Zillow or Homes.com or many of these other portals already send you an email with the weekly listing activity report as well. So the main thing that you need to do to get this automation set up and running well is that you need to go in and make sure that all of the weekly reports from any of the portals that offer it, assuming that you would like to have it included in your weekly seller report, are coming in to your email. So that means that if you want your weekly seller report to display how many views the listing has been getting on Zillow, we want to make sure that you're set to receive emails from Zillow regarding your listing activity. Now, some of these portals are set to email you automatically. I don't know if it's because of my background as a premier agent or if it was for some other reason. I was already receiving reports from Zillow regarding the listing activity. However, I wasn't previously receiving automatic emails from realtor.com and homes.com. Both Realtor and Homes were pretty easy to turn the email reports on, but I want to show you Realtors just because it was a little bit hard to find. And there is one caveat that's going to have an impact on our workflow. So let's dive in. Okay, let me walk you through a couple of the steps with realtor.com because some of it wasn't completely intuitive for me. Maybe there's an easier way, but I'm going to show you how I got there. So when you go to realtor.com and you go to sign in, you want to be careful not to just sign in or continue with Google because that will just sign you in as a user of realtor.com, or you can save a search or mark favorite properties. Make sure you look down here where it says, "Are you a real estate agent?" and then click login from there. Um, and then once you're into your realtor.com account, you should be able to go to listings and promotions over here on the left-hand side. Then you should be able to scroll down a little bit, click on your listing, and then there is a share report button. And then with the share report button, you can select whether you want it to be weekly or just this once. For now, when you're testing the automation, you may want it to email it to you right away so that you don't have to wait for it and we can build your first report. So I would recommend telling it to send it just this once right away, but you're also going to want to set it to send weekly. Now, one big limitation, as you can see from this, is that realtor.com will only send it weekly on Mondays at 5 p.m. Central Time. That means that we're not going to have the realtor.com data available for our weekly seller report until after that time. So when we set our automation for what time we want this weekly seller report to be ran, it needs to be after Mondays at 5 p.m. Frankly, we're just setting ours up on Tuesday mornings. Now, we haven't spent a ton of time yet on the install guide because I've been mainly talking to you about all of the different Claude products. But I am going to want you to go ahead and open your install guide if you haven't done so already. If you go into the Google Drive folder where we have shared a number of the assets that you're going to need for this workflow with you, the very first one where it says Start Here Install Guide is what you're going to want to open. Now, if you just click on it or double click on it, it just opens up with all of this code and you can't actually view it. What you need to do is actually download it and then open it from the downloads folder. When you do that, it will open it up like this in a formatted way that allows you to view it and interact with the install guide. So this is just explaining some of what I've already spoken about on steps 1 and 2, but go ahead and jump over to step 3. And this is where it's talking about turning on your data emails. So I just finished showing you how to make sure that you've got realtor.com turned on. You're going to want to do the same thing for homes.com, Zillow, and if there are any other portals that you want to make sure are included in your weekly seller report, as long as they send you a weekly email, we should be able to do it. So for example, if you're in the Houston area and a lot of the buyers in that area are using HAR, you may want to make sure that you're getting HAR report included into your weekly seller report. Just make sure you're getting an email from them. A couple of the other data emails that we are going to need is from your MLS. Your MLS should have the ability to send some sort of weekly listing activity report. Now, we have people watching this video from all over the country who use different MLSs. So unfortunately, you're going to have to find the way to get the report from your MLS. But I know that in Flex MLS, it was a bit wonky and tricky for where to go, where to find the report, and how to send it to yourself. So if you happen to use Flex, even if you're not in the Phoenix area, but Flex is the provider of your MLS, I'm going to show you how I got to it in my MLS really quick. You go to the change listing screen, you select the listing that you're looking to change, and then in here, there is an activity link. You go to the activity link and then it shows you the report. You can adjust the date ranges for the report if you want to right here. And then down at the bottom, you can do a single email, or you can also set it to an auto email. Again, when you're building this automation for the first time, I would suggest go ahead and email this to yourself right away so that you have it in your inbox, but then also set it to email to you weekly. probably on Monday afternoon, Monday evening, or early Tuesday morning so that you have it ready to go for your Tuesday morning run on the weekly seller reports. Now, one additional report that you're going to need from your MLS, in addition to the viewing activity report that we just looked at in the MLS, are the comparable sales. So, what I want you to do is you're going to go into your MLS and you're going to create a saved search that's going to send you any of the and you're just going to set it to email it to yourself, not to the seller. Let me see the comparable sales for the past 7 days. So you're whatever the comps are, right? You're going to have to determine for your market what's a relevant comp and what isn't. But you're going to set up your radius and your property type requirements, and you're going to set that to email to yourself once every 7 days. And you're only going to include the last 7 days of activity. So show me all the active listings, and then show me anything that went pending, or anything that closed, or anything that canceled, or anything that expired or came back on the market over the previous 7 day period. Set that to email to yourself every week, probably on Monday afternoons or Tuesday mornings. And make sure that you name it or give it a subject line that matches the address of the property. That way, Claude will easily be able to identify later when it's going through your email, oh, this email is related to the comps for that property. Then again, you're going to go through and make sure that you're receiving the email notifications from your showing platform. So again, if you're using Showing Time, Aligned Showings, Broker Bay, or something similar, and you want to make sure that you're also receiving the feedback emails that come in from those platforms. If you do not use a showing platform, there is a possibility that you're tracking your showings manually on some sort of spreadsheet. You could build a spreadsheet that shows all of the showings and connect that to the Claude project later. But I'm really hoping for most of you that you're using one of these digital showing platforms. But one more possible option is if you're using digital lock boxes like a Supra or a Sentry box, if you can set those up to send you notifications anytime the lockbox is accessed, you could probably use that data for the showing activity in your weekly seller report as well. Okay, let me dive in and talk to you about the next section with social media and how we're going to get your social media content integrated into your weekly seller report. Now, I really want to add that this part is optional. You don't absolutely have to include social media content in your weekly seller report. But even if you do want to include it, there's possibly an easier way where we can just add your social media content to the weekly seller report manually. But if you want it to be automated, we're going to have to use this section here with Zapier. Now, basically, there's a couple of big advantages to adding the social media content to the weekly seller report. The biggest of which is that we want the seller to become a distribution channel for your listings. Imagine you send them a weekly seller report, and in the weekly seller report, they see a link to a social media post you did about their home. They love it, and then they go on and share it with their audience. It's good advertising for you, and it impresses them that you're putting information about their home on your social media channels. Frankly, many sellers probably expect that from you. But why do we need to use Zapier? Well, basically because Claude doesn't have a fluent way to talk to social media channels, or at least not most of them. We can't really get Claude to go out and search your Instagram page and find all of the posts that you have made about individual listings on your Instagram. Frankly, I think that is intentional. Platforms like Meta are not going to allow platforms like Claude to get access to their data very easily because they have their own AIs, and they're not going to make it easy on other AIs scrubbing their data. But with Zapier, we're able to basically take all of your social media content and automatically put it into a spreadsheet. Once it's in a spreadsheet in your Google Drive, now we're talking Claude's language. Claude can analyze all the information in that spreadsheet, figure out which posts are relevant to which listings, and then include them in your weekly seller report if that's how you would like to build it. In our weekly seller report install guide, section 4 right here walks you through setting up the Zap, but I think it's going to be easier for me to just show you how to do it on my screen. So please follow along. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to build a new Google Sheet in your Google Drive. And I just want you to add the following captions along the top. It doesn't matter how pretty this is. It's not going to be shown to anyone other than Claude, but add post, link, caption, username, timestamp, and media type to the top. You don't need to do anything else here. Then you're going to go to Zapier. Now, you're probably going to want to get the pro version of Zapier. Zapier only allows 2 free zaps. Once you have more than 2, you're going to have to pay for the pro version. If you're posting on multiple platforms and you want to be able to grab all of those posts from multiple social media platforms and include them in your weekly seller report, you're going to need a separate zap for each platform. But the good news is, once you have your Zapier account and you're in, it's not that difficult to connect it to your spreadsheet. Let me show you how. Come in here and just explain what you're looking to do. Okay, so as you can tell, Zapier's AI assistant is pretty smart and figured it out pretty quickly, figured out which apps we're going to need to connect. But once you can see that it's got your Instagram or your Facebook or whichever social media platform you're trying to connect in Google Sheets there, go ahead and say continue with the Zap editor. Once it moves to this Zap editor screen, it again does a number of things automatically. It says that the trigger is going to be new media posted to my Instagram account, and then it's going to create a new row in a Google Sheet. But there is some additional formatting that we're going to need to do. So as you can see, it wants us to make sure that we're signed into our Instagram for Business account, and then we're going to connect those to our Zapier. And now that I'm signed into the Instagram account, it wants me to make sure that I'm signed into Google Sheets. Okay, so it's got our Instagram connected, it's got our Google Sheets connected, but now it basically needs us to map the Instagram field. So if you look over here, it's wanting us to make some selections. So first, under the Drive account here, you're just going to select your Google Drive. And then under the spreadsheet, you're going to want to select the Google Sheet that you just created. Ideally, it's going to show you right at the very top the sheet that you're going to need because you literally just created it. Then you're going to choose sheet 1. That's because in your Google Sheet, you could have had multiple tabs. Again, we didn't set it up with multiple tabs. We just set it up with the one sheet. So we'll select sheet 1 right there. We are going to include the time zone. And then on the post link, again, there's like a little plus sign right here. And you're just going to come over here where it says permalink and select that. Okay, then under caption, again, click the plus sign, find the one that says caption and select it. Username, select the username. Timestamp, select the timestamp. Media type, select the media type. So you're just going to map each of those fields to each of our columns in our spreadsheet and then say continue. And then let's just go ahead and try testing that step. Okay, and now that we've tested this step, it seems to think that it worked successfully. It grabbed a post that I did on social media already, and it included the link. Let's go see if it added it to our spreadsheet. And bada boom, bada bing, it's not very pretty, but here it is with the link and with the media type. Claude will later easily be able to read this caption, see that the post is about the listing on Siesta. It will even be able to click the link, pull up the media from the post, and include it in our weekly seller report. So obviously, we've now connected it to one social media platform. You're basically going to follow the exact same process if you're wanting to connect it to Facebook or to a different Instagram account or channel. As many zaps as you're wanting to use, just connect them all to that same spreadsheet. And then later, we're going to take the link for this spreadsheet and we're going to add it into our Claude project instructions so that it now knows where to go every single week to grab your social media content. It is as easy as that. The step really isn't that complicated, but because it requires that extra Zapier program, and I know that looks intimidating for a lot of people, so I wanted to walk you through that slowly. Hope you found that helpful. Okay, we have been through a lot and we are finally ready to begin the actual install of getting your weekly seller report put together and delivered to your clients. Let's start by looking at the brand install guide to show you exactly where we left off. We've got all the emails set to be delivered to your inbox. So you're getting notifications from your MLS and from Zillow and from Realtor.com and from Showing Time or Align Showings or Broker Bay or any other portals that you're wanting to implement. If you decided to do the optional section with the social media, we've set up a Zap so that all of your social media posts are getting put into that spreadsheet. Okay. And then we're now on step 5, where you're going to fill out this questionnaire. The questionnaire is basically going to help fine tune the prompt that we're going to give to Claude soon, so that it knows where in your email it needs to look, what types of things it needs to look for. So let's fill this out real quick. Let me just touch on this one right here. Are your showings handled manually? Hopefully you're using a showing time, a broker bay, one of those. And if that is the case, you say, no, your showing platform handles it. If you're planning on adding the showing activity manually, maybe you have a spreadsheet where you're tracking all the showings and you want to add that manually, then you would say, no, I'll go ahead and attach the showings each week. That does remove a lot of the automation that this system is able to handle. But hopefully most of you are using the digital showing platform. The lockbox information is really not that important unless you plan on using the lockbox was opened email notifications in your report. So if you don't plan on using the lockbox email notifications, again, I'm using aligned showing. So all of those reports are already in my email. I don't need to double it with the lockbox notifications. So I'm going to say no on the lockbox notifications. But again, if you wanted to use the lockbox data to show up in your weekly seller report, then you would adjust this and say, yes, I am using Supra or a different kind of lockbox that I get email notifications for. Then the sheet that we made with Zapier, if you did the Zapier social media connection, you're going to take the link for that Google Sheet and you're going to paste that here. Once you do that, the next step is to install the skill. We actually, if you've been following along on the guide, we actually already installed the skill in a previous chapter where I talked to you about skills and what they are and how they work. If you haven't done that step, though, the way that you're going to do it is here in the file, there's a skill that you're going to download, and then you're going to add it to your Claude account as a skill. If you don't know how to do that, please go back and watch the chapter on skills. And now we are finally ready to begin building our project. So what it's wanting us to do is go to Claude Cowork. Again, remember, that's the desktop application. We're going to create a new project. We're going to say that we're starting from scratch. We're going to name it Weekly Seller Reports. And then where it asks for instructions, we're going to take this big instruction block that it gave you, copy it, and paste it. So let's do that together. Okay, so I'm in Claude's desktop application. The way that I know is these 3 tabs across the top. You do absolutely need to be in Cowork for this entire project to work. So make sure you are not in that chat tab. Once you're in the Cowork tab, you're going to go to projects and say new project. We're going to say start from scratch, and we're going to name our project Weekly Seller Reports. And then we are going to paste the instructions that it already gave us. It's also asking us to upload the workbook that I gave you in the Google Drive folder. In the Google Drive folder where we have the install guide and the skill and the template, there is a workbook template. You're going to want to make sure that you have this downloaded. And then here where it's asking you to attach files, you'll click that here and make sure that you attach that workbook. It also has a project location. This is where it's going to store what it's working on your computer. I've never changed that, but if for some reason you're wanting to adjust where the project location is, that's where you would change that. And then you're going to say create. Okay, we have our Claude project now created, and we are ready to schedule the weekly run and begin gathering all the data. So let's dive in. So in the guide, it is giving you a prompt that is suggesting that you set this up on a schedule to run every Tuesday at 7 a.m. The reason that we set it that way is because that Realtor.com report doesn't come in until 5 p.m. on Mondays. But one very important thing for you to consider is that once you run a Claude task on a schedule, something that you want it to run every Tuesday at 7 a.m., for example, is that your computer needs to be on. Claude Cowork will not be able to run this if your computer is not on and open and connected to the internet. Now, you can be working on other things. It can work in the background. You don't need to leave the computer untouched while it does this. You can work on your computer while it does it, but it won't work if it's not on. So if there's there's no chance that you're going to be at your computer on Tuesdays at 7 a.m. Don't try to run it on Tuesday at 7 a.m. or it will not work. So my best suggestion would be set it to run first thing as soon as you typically get to your office or get your computer turned on and powered up. And that's when it's scheduled to run. So let's take this prompt. We're going to go ahead and grab that and we will go back over to Claude. Okay, we are now back in Claude and we are going to take that prompt that we pasted from our guide that is going to schedule this to run every Tuesday at 7 a.m. and hit send. Okay, and it only took it a couple of seconds. After that, it popped up with just asking me to confirm that I want it to gather the listing activity, update the workbook, and draft the seller emails, but do not send every Tuesday at 7 a.m. And I'll go ahead and hit schedule. And there you go. It is as easy as that. This is now scheduled to run and go gather all of that information for us every Tuesday at 7 a.m. But just so that you can see exactly how it works in this video, we're going to ask it to run now so you can see what it does. Okay, it has finished gathering all of the information. It took it about 5 minutes to go out and get all of the data from my email and to use Claude in Chrome to look at some of the information that it couldn't see directly in my email, and it filled all the information into this workbook template that I provided you with. So you come into this workbook template now and you come here and it should accurately display your listings. It should display kind of a weekly summary of how many total showings and how many feedbacks it found on those reports for the week. It should show kind of each listing and how many views the home is getting on each of the portals. It should have information on all the showings that it got from your aligned showings or showing time or whatever it is that you're using. And it should have also been able to grab your social media posts. So just do a quick little check on all those tabs, make sure that they're not completely blank, and we're ready to turn this into a beautiful report. So once you've confirmed that all the information that you expect to be able to see in the data report is in the data report, you're going to want to click to show the file in the folder. We're going to need this for the next step. So make sure you know where it has saved this workbook onto your computer. It should have put it into that folder that is the project folder. But for me, the easiest way was just to click on show in folder. So when I click show in folder, it just opens up a folder for me that shows me exactly where the file is saved. So now for the fun part, we get to make it look pretty. Now we get to make the report look pretty by building it in Claude Design. Now, Claude Design is another beast that we don't have time for a deep dive in this video about what Claude Design is and how it works and why you need it. But we recently made a video all about Claude Design and everything that it does. So please go watch this video if you have not already created a design system. You need to have already made a design system in Claude Design for this next part of the video to work. Now we are actually going to use Claude.ai. We're not going to use Claude Cowork because we need to access Claude Design, which is an online tool. So start by going to Claude.ai and then come to this little button over here that says Design. Alternatively, you can also get there by just typing the URL claude.ai/design. Now, again, you absolutely need to have already made a design system for your brand. If you haven't already made that, then this is not going to work. But if you like the template that we provided and you would like it to kind of match that flow, then you're going to want to make sure that you're downloading this template. You're going to come into Claude Design after you have downloaded the template, and you're going to say that you want to create a prototype. Select this prototype button here at the top, and you are going to attach two things. First, you're going to attach the completed workbook that Claude already designed for you. And then you are also going to attach the wireframe template that we just downloaded from Google Drive. Now, just so that you know, it's not super easy and intuitive, in my opinion, to see what's attached. So you do want to kind of pay attention to what's down here in this little box after you've done your attachments. Make sure that you're using the brand design system that you want to be using. And then you can look right here. It says that the template weekly seller report is attached and the workbook template for the Claude that has all the data in it for the showing reports is also attached. Then we are going to tell it to go ahead and complete the report. Now, one more thing that it might need, depending on what you've used Claude Design for so far, is it might need pictures of the listing. So if you don't already have pictures of the listing, you'll want to upload those here as well. At least one hero shot, as I would call it, like your favorite picture that you want to have appear on the front of the house. Okay, and there you have it. Here is our completed, beautiful, branded weekly seller report that it kicks out for us. You can scroll through it. You can make changes just by prompting it. So if there's little components of it that you don't love the way it laid things out, maybe there's certain things that it wrote that you would prefer that it just exclude altogether. But it's got on mine, it didn't include the data on Redfin and Homes.com because I'm not recording this video on a Tuesday, and so those fresh reports were not in my inbox. But normally it would include, I'm sorry, the Realtor and the Homes.com data. But it's got the feedback that it found from my email. It even found in my email that an agent had reached out saying their client was considering an offer. I didn't even prompt it to find that, and it found it in my email anyway. It's got the recent comparable sales. It's got a post that I did about their home on social media. It added the QR code. That wasn't in our template either. I'm always so impressed with Claude and its intelligence and the things that it's able to add. Now, I do want to show you if there are tiny little things about the report that you don't like that you would prefer to tweak. I'm going to give you one example. I don't love how it put my logo in this white box. Normally, it puts the logos, with the image as the background, not the white box. Same with the weekly seller reports. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to markup, and I'm going to select that whole box, and I'm going to say, I don't like the white background. Okay, I'll send that to Claude. It'll take it a minute or two and it will adjust that, and then it will no longer be on a white background. I'll wait here for it to update so you can see the finished product. And there you have it. Now it is updated without the white background. So my advice would be to go through either using the markup, or frankly, you can just type over here in the left sidebar what it is that you want it to change. Go through and keep on tweaking it until it's got the template exactly the way you like it. And then in there in the chat, just say, okay, this weekly seller report is my new template. Lock that in as my template. And so next week, when I bring you the spreadsheet, make sure you make it look like our template, and it should do that for you automatically. Claude Design does make the whole downloading of assets slightly more confusing than it needs to be. You're going to come up to this button in the upper right-hand corner that says share. You've got a couple of options up here. You can actually send it to Canva if you want to make some additional edits on your own, but you can also come to this export tab, and you're probably going to want to export it as a PDF. Once you've exported it as a PDF, it's ready to email to the seller. So you're going to come into your email drafts, and because of the way our skill was set up, it already drafted the email saying, hey, great news. Here's your weekly seller report. Even added a couple of little details of what was in the data. So the draft is there, ready to go. All you have to do is attach your report, tweak the email if you want to make any changes, and hit send. I really hope that this video was helpful and informative for you. I hope that you feel like you're knowing a lot more about Claude and you're feeling more empowered and excited to go out and build and automate and add some things into your business. Please continue to like and subscribe. Please comment, drop questions. Let us know where you're getting stuck or where you're having a hard time. We would absolutely love to help. And as always, we appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and go take it and run.